Okay, so now we're going to dive into this NOI equation, revenue minus expenses. We're going to start with the revenue. So what do we include and what do we not include in our revenue equation? So mostly revenue is made up of rental income. That's pretty self-explanatory. Most of the income coming in is going to be on a monthly basis from rents. Having said that, we've also got a whole wide variety of other ways that properties can produce income. So I'm going to read a few off here. We have parking. So if you're renting out parking spaces outside of the rental units. Laundry, if you have a coin-operated laundry system. Move-in fees. We'll get to why that could be a little controversial to include in revenue for now. Let's just keep that in the list. Amenities usage. So in some of these larger apartment buildings, you might have conference rooms that could be rented out, maybe movie theaters you can rent out. Utilities reimbursement is another one. So I typically see this in studios. You might have, say, 7 studios. Instead of individually metering each studio, which can be pretty expensive and not worth it, instead what they do is the owner pays the utilities, the electric bill, for instance, but then will divide it by each unit 7 ways and then request that reimbursement. So that's utilities reimbursement. Late fees, kind of lump in with move-in fees. We'll talk about that in a bit. Pet fees, so it could be monthly, it could be a one-time fee, and storage fees. So if there's storage units not inside the unit, that could be included as well. So really the rule of thumb we use to determine whether it should be included in revenue or not is the following question. Is it recurring on an annual basis or less than an annual basis? So let's unpack that statement a little bit. Is it recurring on an annual basis or less than an annual basis? We're really asking, is it recurring? So is rental income recurring? Yes, it's typically on a monthly basis, it's recurring. Same with parking, same with laundry. Laundry may not be as consistent, but it's less than an annual basis. It's not like someone's prepaying laundry 5 years in advance. An extreme example there. So back to move-in fees and late fees. Some could say that these are not consistent and recurring on a regular basis. I agree to some extent. So for smaller buildings, if you charge a move-in fee, you may have, say, a 5 unit, and the tenants there may have been there for the past decade. So you wouldn't actually accrue any move-in fees, at least with any regularity. So I think for that instance, it's acceptable to not use move-in fees because of the criteria that we stated. Is it recurring on an annual basis or less than an annual basis? For something like 100-unit complex, there's a statistical evening out where it's highly, highly unlikely you're gonna have 0 move-ins throughout the year. In fact, there's probably gonna be a pretty consistent percentage of move-ins, move-outs and move-ins that you can rely on, where I think it would be appropriate to use move-in fees as a source of revenue and therefore added to the NOI. So use your best judgment. Again, I want to reiterate, commercial real estate valuations is not always an exact science, and those are a couple of examples. So with that said, let's test your knowledge a little bit. Ask yourself the following question. If I found a briefcase full of cash in the basement of one of my buildings, would you count that towards revenue and effectively NOI? So if you found a briefcase full of cash in the basement, would you count that towards NOI? So the answer I would say to that is no. First of all, let's skip past the part about finding a briefcase full of cash in the basement, but really the answer I'm looking for is that it is not a reliably recurring source of revenue. If for some reason you expected to find a briefcase full of cash every month or every couple of months or every year, you would include that. Again, the question would be, why would you be finding that? But the point is that it's not a reliable source of income, and therefore it should not be counted towards NOI. So to recap, revenue, the main source is rental income, and then we have a whole host of potential other revenue sources. But the criteria we use is it recurring on an annual basis or less than an annual basis?